This is my first video, so it will break the schedule. It's a Writing Advice Wednesday video on Friday, so I hope you don't mind. As a compromise between Scenic Wednesday art and Friday dragon art, I'm using Scenic Dragon art. This is a channel about giving writing advice and talking about writing. That's great and all, but what exactly should you do with writing advice? There's a million different sources of writing advice out there depending on your preferred source and medium. So what are you supposed to do with it all? With the risk of recreating XKCD comic 927, I'm going to give you my perspective on how to take writing advice as a writer, whether you're new, old, or in between. Every writer is unique in terms of both content and process. Even if someone writes the exact same kind or genre of stories as you, doesn't mean their process is at all like yours. Maybe they plan it all out beforehand while you write on the fly. Maybe they only write when inspiration strikes while you write a bit every day. Maybe they think about writing endlessly before they sit down, where your mind is blank until the words are in front of you. There are billions of different ways to write. That means you need to take all writing advice with a grain of salt and understand there are no hard rules. But it doesn't mean all writing advice or rules are useless. Humans have been writing creatively ever since language was invented. So ignoring all writing advice and conventions is both pretentious and counterproductive. Learn from other people's experiences instead of learning it all the hard way yourself. Let me give an example. One common piece of advice is not to start your story with the POV character waking up. Obviously, this isn't universal. Stories that range from novels like Martha Wells' Witch King to video games like Skyrim start with the protagonist waking up, and it's fine. Honestly, in Skyrim's case, it's iconic. But understanding the advice not to start your story with the POV character waking up can help you understand what makes a story beginning effective, as well as common pitfalls to starting your story. The reason why not starting a story with the protagonist waking up is common advice is that it's a common pitfall for new writers. Writers who don't know how to start their story might look for a kind of default place to start, and you start every day by waking up, so why not start your story there? The issue is that there's no default way to start a story. Every story is unique and deserves thought as to where it starts. Also, when the protagonist wakes up, that's usually before the actual story starts, which means it's before the actual setup or starting incident for the story. It often builds in boring filler content, where you watch the POV character's morning routine, which means it starts a beginning scene with no stakes. If you're using it as a default way to start a story, it's also not what you wanted to write, and doesn't match up with the specific reasons you wanted to write this story. Basically, it's boring and bad as a default story starters, and too many writers will try to look for a default. From understanding this, we can also understand story beginnings like Skyrim. Skyrim doesn't start with the character waking up in bed and going through their daily routine. It starts with waking up in a prison cart about to be executed. There are new disruptions to the status quo and stakes immediately, and it's already introducing one of the main conflicts by having you waking up as a mistaken Stormcloak prisoner, taken by Imperial soldiers. Those are important and interesting things for the story to do as an intro. A character waking up in their bed, that doesn't do any of it. Not every beginning has to do those exact things, but the story beginning should be doing important and interesting work for the story, and a character waking up in bed and going through their average morning routine usually isn't it. So, by breaking down this writing advice, we can see the material importance beginnings have and how you should never try to use a default beginning for your story. I'll have a whole video on story beginnings later, so I won't discuss this example further, but the point is that this very non-universal rule can still be really helpful for everyone to understand. It also very well might be a rule that you should follow and a rule that applies to you if you find yourself starting a story where the character wakes up as a default beginning. Writing is a fundamentally personal and individual journey, but there are common trends that show in many journeys that, well, they tend to inform the common writing advice and rules. Understanding those rules and paths can help you in moving forward in your own individual writing journey. This leads us to the tagline of this channel. Writing is a dragon-sized journey. What size is a dragon? Well, as the main character of P. Kingfisher's Swordheart points out in a very funny scene, dragon size doesn't actually mean anything specific. Dragons are one of the most diverse fantasy creatures out there. They come in all shapes and sizes. for more information on dragons, you can check out Overly Sarcastic Productions Trope Talk. They have a great video on dragons. The point is, though, that dragons come in all shapes and sizes. Yet there are common trends, and people from the same culture will probably imagine something similar when they hear the word dragon. Regardless of whether it's a big dragon or a small dragon, it's usually a big dragon. Writing is the same way. Your writing journey will be completely unique because it's incredibly personal. But that doesn't mean you should dismiss all writing advice that comes from others. If you can understand the advice and where it's coming from, you can take the parts of the advice that apply to you and also deepen your understanding of writing as a whole. So, there's my personal advice on how to take writing advice. Take writing advice with a grain of salt, or sometimes a mountain of salt, but do take it. That's the video for today. If you like the art I made, check out my Redbubble link in the video description. Like, comment, subscribe, and remember, writing is a dragon-sized journey.